There's a story around money in our family that says that when I got married, I told my wife I'd look after all the major money decisions and she could look after all the minor decisions. With the punchline being that after 40 years of marriage, there's never been a major decision for me to make. But for some families in New Zealand, money is anything but a joking matter. And it's not simply a case of not having any money or having enough, but it gets to a situation where the debt level reached is impossible and something has to give. And it's often at that huge moment of need that the organisation CAP appears on the scene. These are amazing people and I wanted you to meet them. Aimee Mai is the leader, the CEO of CAP. So Aimee, the meaning of the word CAP, can you just give us a wee bit of history?
So, Christians Against Poverty. I actually don't know how John Kirkby, the founder, came up with it, but he did. And remarkably, it fits. So our flagship service and the service that we started with was debt help. But since then have kind of flown on to deal with some of the causes of poverty as well. So it could have been Christians Against Debt, but it's Christians Against Poverty, and that's what we're dealing with and tackling here in New Zealand today. I find it hard to believe that you even need to exist in New Zealand. Well, I wish we didn't. I wish we didn't have to exist, but yes, we do. And I think, well, if you're watching the news, you'd be very well aware of this with the Credit Contracts and Consumer Finance Act being reviewed at the moment. But yeah, absolutely, it's been around for a while. There's a phrase that I've heard around CAP, the miserable grip of poverty. And I heard it and I thought, man, that is so sad. Is there a lot of truth around that? Oh, a heck of a lot of truth, you know. So I speak to clients fairly regularly, and the way that they describe it could be exactly that, you know, rubbish bag after black rubbish bag over your head, darkness, a cloud, weight. It's a miserable grip. Are we talking about homeless people here? No, so we're talking about families, often living in homes. In fact, we go and visit clients in their homes. These are everyday New Zealanders, people like you and I, all around our country. I've heard it said that there are people who you'd consider middle class have had to reach out to the services that you guys have. Could that be possible? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember 2 specialist doctors calling in for help, a couple. You know, like this is not limited to people on low incomes, but certainly we work with the majority of people on low incomes. So it's not just a matter of not having any money, but it's also a case of owing a lot of money. Yeah, it's the prevalence of debt and the availability to get debt here in New Zealand, which is, well, that can cause that grip. So obviously the more income you're on, the more you can borrow, but we're talking about, you know, 70% of our clients, our debt help clients, are on the benefit, and the average amount of debt that clients come to us with is about $28,000. How much? $28,000. So how do they get $28,000 in debt? Well, it's a very good question, Gary, but and I think this is what the Credit Contracts and Consumer Finance Act, the review of that, is trying to tackle and look at. But the reality is that there are lenders, creditors out there who are predatory, preying on the poor and vulnerable, and offering debt that is trapping people in a life sentence of debt, literally. I can't believe how hard it must be and how just demoralising it must be at night to hear the phone ring and go, oh, I wonder who that is. I can't answer it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some creditors too are calling time and time again each day. I mean, we hear of clients, well, our clients don't pick up the phone after a while. They're sick of it. They can't handle it. Every phone call from a creditor just reminds them again of their lack. But then clients miss important phone calls. I mean, one just the other day missed an important call about a hospital appointment for their child because they just weren't able to pick up the phone. The anxiety, all of that comes with poverty and with this huge indebtedness, it's devastating. Aimee, I can't imagine in your last year at high school, you went to the school careers guidance officer and said, you know what, when I leave school, I'm going to look after an organisation called CAP. How did you become involved then? How did that work? Yeah, absolutely I did not. I left school to be an accountant. And I did for a short time, and then worked in HR, but no, I was working in HR.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Just kidding.
So I was working in HR when I read the book written by John Kirkby, the founder of Christians Against Poverty. And I mean, it's an easy read and one that anyone can get if they visit our website for free. We give it out every day. But that book just got my attention, and I'd say it was God that got my attention through reading that book. I remembered a prayer from my youth that, Lord, I don't want to live a complacent life. I want to live a faith-filled life, one that I need to rely on you for. And I was reminded of that as I was reading this book, and I just couldn't not do anything after finishing it. And so got in touch, and they'd just arrived in New Zealand and started volunteering actually to begin with, but about a year in, took a job. The rest is history. 10 and a bit years.
Can you still remember the first client that you were involved with?
Oh, so I've never worked in the client services area directly with clients, but I remember many clients whom I've worked with over the years, like in terms of speaking to them. We hold discovery break camps every year for a number of clients and meeting clients, and some they'll always stick with me. I remember Kushla, who was one of our very early clients and the first client who came to faith through the service, and she, absolutely beautiful. I
still can't get into my head the moment that must happen for someone to say, I need to ring you guys. What sort of devastation, what sort of despair must they be at before they pick up the phone?
I remember one mum telling me that she realised that she needed help when she saw her son's shoes with holes in them, and he didn't tell her about it. So she realised that he must have known that he couldn't ask because the money wasn't there. So that was a real kicker for her to get help. But another one, I remember a guy just walking down the street in Glen Innes in Auckland and thinking, I've either got to rob a store to survive or end my life. But miraculously, there was a brochure cap on the pavement, and he picked it up and gave a call. So, 1 in 4 of our clients are at the point of contemplating or considering or attempting suicide before they ask for help. So they're in pretty desperate situations. But for every client, it'll be different, and we certainly hope that more and more will ask for help earlier.
How important is the spiritual aspect of what we're talking about here? I mean, I get it, let's get out of debt, that's nice. But what about the spiritual component?
Oh, it's the bedrock. It's very, very important. So for everyone involved in Christians Against Poverty, that is a huge reason for the passion we have. Like I'm certain that I would not have the compassion for the people we're working with should it not be for God's work in my life. And I mean, we know that this is something that Jesus was really, really passionate about. But then people coming to faith, having the opportunity to offer prayer, to pray with people when they first call for help, offering prayer when we sit with them in their lounges and lay out what CAP can do to help or gather the information, offering that prayer when we hear their story and hear the needs. I mean, we see miracles happen, every day. And we can't do that without God. And I'm absolutely convinced that the transformation that we see in people's lives every day would not happen if it was only the practical help that we offered.
One of the wonderful things that we can do is we can share the stories of people that have been involved with CAP, and I want to show you one. This is Kathleen and Marlo's story, and it's deeply moving. Have a look.
Made a lot of poor choices there, to be honest, looking back. Trying to keep up with the fads and the Joneses.
And would just use one credit card to pay another creditor, and it was endless nights of analysing, of juggling, of worrying, and more often than not would have $60 there and how we were going to spend that $60 on food. That was just the way that it was. I had approached him on a couple of occasions to try and get more involved with our finances. He sort of shut me down, and so I started to resent him. I didn't so much take it out on Malo, but I did find myself in a stressed situation that I started to lash out on the kids. Unfortunately, they were the victims of my resentment towards my husband. I rang the CAP client services. On the receiving end of that phone call was a willing person that understood exactly what I was needing, and it was like God was throwing me a lifeline from that first phone call. The day that Nairi came to our house, I was a bit reluctant, but I was ready. The one thing that I felt with her was that she wasn't judging us for our wild living. She just sat there and she took all the information in, and from that day on we were so much lighter, so much better. There was hope for us. When Nairi came with our budget, the one thing that stood out for me was the food budget. I actually said to her, she's got it wrong. It's too much for food. And she sort of looked at me and thought, no, that's what a family of your size actually needs. Our relationship has just grown from strength to strength from that point. It's got better because I'm no longer worrying about debt.
I could see our love developing for one another because of what CAP has enabled us to do. Take that burden off in terms of the financial burden and just focus more on our marriage.
CAP was sending us financial statements. At the bottom of the financial statement, you'd see the time frame. I would just constantly count down the days of when we were going to be debt-free. So April 2015, we were debt-free.
Debt-free, set free.
The best news we've ever got. There's nothing holding us back anymore. My children are so important to us, and the generations to come, and the amazing work that CAP does. It's changed our lives, it's changed our world, it's changed the people that we are. We're no longer struggling, we're no longer in bondage.
For us, we're living testimony of what God has done through CAP, through that ministry, and there is hope, and there is light at the end of the dark tunnel.
You guys are saints.
Kath and Marlo are amazing. Yeah, so every client does the hard work, you know. It's a privilege to help them. They're beautiful.
Do you know what I liked about that video? I saw his hand go around his wife at one stage, and he sort of like patted her and protected her. And then at the end he said, debt-free, set-free, and then fist pump.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you still get upset about it.
Oh, I do. They're beautiful. They're beautiful. And, you know, some more of that story that, you know, Kath said that she took it out on her kids. And I know that one of her kids, her youngest, would run from the door when she got home from work in those dark times. But then since getting help, and she runs to the door, you know. And, I mean, Kath said herself, she was like dragon mum, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, horrible for a mum to feel like that, and to know that that she is taking it out on her kids. And we know that, you know, the relationship between mum and dad, between parents, is crucial for resilience to be built into kids' lives, you know.
It must have been a moment for them when there was the knock on the door and Nairi came in and then began the process. The sheer relief.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Nairi is a centre manager, a debt coach who goes into the homes. I mean, our centre managers will tell us all the time that they can visually see a burden lift even on that first visit.
I can imagine what it must be like, because the idea of not owing money is such a big thing, and in this culture that we live in, we don't want to feel like that. But we're talking about people who are free of debt. They don't necessarily at that point own a house or anything. They're just free of debt.
Yeah, yeah. I've had a client tell me that they felt like they won the lottery, and this was when they were working with CAP. And you got to understand that our clients aren't living lavishly; their budgets are tight. Like I would, you know, trying to live on a budget that our clients live on is not easy either.
The church is very much involved in what CAP does in New Zealand. How is that done?
Yes, so CAP we will only work in partnership with local churches. So it's local work happening in local communities, local people helping other local people. And so that relational kind of face-to-face is a real crucial part of the service that CAP offers. It's where love can be shown, it's where the gospel can be presented, it's where care is known and understood. Of course, as well as the work over the phone with clients that is, constant and consistent over the 2 to 4 years that it takes for clients to go debt-free.
Is that how long it takes, 2 to 4 years?
Yeah, on average, yeah.
That's a long time for an organisation to be committed to a family and for a family to be committed to a process. Do many fall by the wayside?
Yeah, there are some that fall by the wayside, and that's devastating, but that's a reality with the clientele that we're working with often. But you talk about a hand up or a hand out. Like CAP is definitely a hand up, but then holding a hand for 2 to 4 years until they are set free from the burden of debt and poverty.
I love the line, "I am now debt-free," and Kathleen was saying, looking forward to the date that it happened, and she can remember that. A lot of the people who are involved with CAP also make a commitment to Christ.
They do.
And they remember that date as well.
They do.
Yeah. Do any of them become involved in church stuff as time goes on?
Yeah, absolutely. So since we began in New Zealand in November 2007, over 1,100 people have made commitments to Jesus Christ, which is pretty awesome, and many of them will be in churches. I know I visited a church recently down in Lower Hutt and saw one of the clients there. So yeah, it's wonderful that people can feel at home in a faith community in a church.
There is a church that is very much involved with CAP, and I want to play you what the pastor of that church had to say. And he begins by talking about the realisation that if his church closed, would it make a difference in the community if it wasn't there? And I thought that was quite compelling viewing, and I just wanted to share that with you.
The church is the only organisation that does not exist for its own members, because we're here for the community. So the question was asked, if you were to shut doors overnight, would the community notice? And that's a very sobering question, a very challenging question. One of our major values in the life of the church is evangelism. It is soul winning. We have to reach people. CAP gives us that open door, that whole, what we might call need-based evangelism. It is a means of getting into people's homes to be able to share Christ with them and help them to get out of debt and lift that whole burden off of their lives. And in the process, that hopefully that they will come to Christ. Debt, of course, is a major area of bondage, and the ability for us to help people in this way and to partner with CAP Head Office, of course, because this is obviously a partnership, is a thrilling thing for us.
I wasn't sure at first whether there'd be a market for it in New Zealand, a relatively prosperous country, but I certainly saw before much longer that it was very much needed in our community. To see people that are actually quite desperate, looking for help, looking for hope, to be able to share with them why we do it, being the love of Christ, and that God loves them, and the relief that you saw in their face straight away, very early on in the conversation. It confirmed with me then that we were doing something very special. This is my backyard, these are people potentially I went to school with. So really to see that benefit coming into this community has been fantastic.
So on the first visit, it was about establishing relationship, and we're there to minister love and the grace of God to the person, and the paperwork is a secondary issue. We do want to see people get debt-free, we absolutely do, but that relationship is more important because that's where the gospel is going to come in, and we're going to be able to lead people into a relationship with the Lord. Once
we've had that initial conversation and got them committed to the CAP process, I mean, we can relax then. And it's just rather seamless, actually, a lot easier than we thought it might be.
CAP are the ones who sort all the paperwork into a workable budget and negotiate with creditors.
And so we can focus on building that relationship and to grow them and just to befriend them and show the love of Christ to them. To see 96 people go debt-free and the amount of salvations that we've had because of the CAP ministry it's just wonderful.
Over the years with CAP, God's taken me on a personal journey myself. I always had a desire to share with people about Jesus, but He's given me a new boldness, just experience and not being afraid, just knowing that He is the one who will do the work, and all He's asking me to do is to go.
We're very fortunate at Victory that the CAP ministry doesn't stand alone. It works within the wider framework of the church and the vision that we have for the church. The whole congregation might not be involved on the day-to-day basis of serving with CAP. They're very much committed behind the scenes in terms of prayer, in terms of financial support. We put on a number of client events each year where other members of the congregation can come in and back the CAP ministry. And we know when we're doing what God's called us to do, we're fulfilled in our lives. And to see that outworked with our people and the satisfaction that they get from helping others, it's bringing glory to God, it's fulfilling the vision of the church, and they're feeling totally satisfied as a result as well.
One of the things I love most about working with CAP is that we get to see such a big change in clients' lives. Often when we go to their houses, they're full of shame and worry and despair, and even at the end of that first visit, many clients are then able to look you in the eye and they say, I just feel like a weight has been lifted off already. I feel lighter, I feel so much better. And that's the power of what CAP does.
We feel that we are able to reach into our community with some real answers for people's lives. And the answers are not just financial, but coming to a place of liberty and freedom.
So many people are waiting for someone just to come along and tell them that Jesus is there and that He can make a difference for them in their lives.
I can imagine people watching that in Australia and New Zealand who belong to a church and saying, hey, we could do that.
Oh, I hope so.
So what would happen? How would they do that?
Well, then, so we would partner with the church, so long as we both want to, and then we would go about helping people who need the help in their communities.
I can't get over how it's the power of the story and the experience of people that have been through the process that seems to be so deeply, deeply moving. Do you remember the story of Sean and Bex?
I do.
Yeah. They're a couple who came to New Zealand and seemed to fall on tough times, and they too came to that point of deep despair. Yeah. Shall we have a look at their story? You got time for that?
Sure.
Okay, here's Bex and Sean, a wonderful story of grace. Have a look.
My mother and my father sort of separated when I was 1, so I sort of spent weekends with my mother and weekdays with my father and grandparents. As for the shopping and budgeting and learning to sort of eat healthy, wasn't really a big thing. I got kicked out of the family house by my mother. So I went through foster homes and boarding houses for about 2.5, 3 years over there. Because of my age, I wasn't made to go to school or anything like that, so I sort of spent 3 years not really doing a lot with my life there, which isn't a good basis to sort of start from.
My mum worked a lot, and so basically I was one of those latchkey kids. And so a lot of the budget stuff didn't really get covered to that, and so I never have pocket money or anything like that either, so I couldn't really learn to budget as such.
When we came over, we didn't really have any money because we used our money to get over here. So we moved in with Bex's father, which was pretty good for the first few months, but it sort of started getting a bit worse, so we were looking for somewhere else to stay, and that's how our house in Wellington came up through Housing New Zealand. So we moved from Tihana down to Wellington. We basically had to start with what we had in our suitcases. All our family and support was 9 hours plus drive away from us. So stressful for a few months until we settled in, sort of not knowing where anything was, not knowing anyone down here. Because we'd taken on so much debt, we were sort of struggling a bit financially, and we went to see Salvation Army to see if they could help us in our situation. And they actually gave us the phone number for Christians Against Poverty and said that they help people in our situation.
We have a support worker and then a person that supports them as well. She actually mentioned a thing called Life Steals and said if we're interested, and we went there, and it was very lovely. They had lunch, and they've got the sense of community as well because I've got quite a few clients there.
My favourite thing from the Life Skills course was want versus need. So we were actually spending a lot of money on things we didn't really need that weren't helping us. So once we sort of cut that out of our shopping, it actually gave us more money to put into healthy food and just more money in general, really, from shopping wisely. Also, you know, for looking for the bargains, just shopping smarter and eating healthier, I suppose.
Yeah.
Had some awesome cooking techniques shown to us. You know, instead of going for the easy options like your old dairy pie or your McDonald's or something like that, which is, you know, high in price and low in nutrition. Last year, just before Easter, we were told about the Discovery Break Camp. We went to that last year. It was absolutely wonderful.
Once or twice a day, they had adult time where the children would actually get being looked after and would go have a session with Don, the pastor.
So he does, you know, 3 or 4 different sessions while we're there. You know, has a bit of a chat about, you know, what it means to be Christian, getting to know God and all the rest of it. And he actually, we had Don pray for me and, yeah, sort of, you know, gave myself to God then. And I mean, I won't say it's been easy since. I'm still sort of struggling on a daily basis to be better, but, you know, hopefully I'm heading in the right direction now. Now that we've done the life skills course, we're a lot better equipped to actually, you know, deal with life in general. We're doing better on our shopping, doing better at home, you know, just everything in general is a lot better than it was beforehand.
Yeah, we feel like life skills has given us the equipment to sort of move forward.
It's, yeah, given us skills that we just didn't have.
Worthless, and then the wee sticker that goes over the top, valued. You guys are amazing. What can we do to help?
There's a few things that you can do to help. I mean, as you know, the problem in New Zealand is huge. So we need people to get involved in prayer. We need people to get involved in giving to make it possible. We need people and their churches to get involved in helping people like Sean and Bex, like Kath and Marlo. And so if you can do one of them, then do that. But of course, if there's anyone who needs the help, it's that they can reach out and ask for the help. And they can just visit capnz.org or call 0508 227 111.
Well, it's been humbling to see and to hear the stories. Thank you to the very brave people who shared theirs. And Aimee, thank you for all that your organisation does. You guys are inspirational.
It's a privilege.